everybody. Welcome to Property Pros. I'm Mark Goldwich.
I'm Peter Laframboy.
We're both public insurance adjusters, but we're interested in all things property, and that's why we're doing this podcast. Today, this is episode 1, and we're happy to have Colby Mapoles. He is with ServPro Bay County, and we're happy to talk to Colby. Colby, I know you and Peter know each other already, but for everybody else, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got to where you are, and what you do.
So I appreciate you guys having me on. So yeah, I do. I've had the pleasure of working with Peter now for quite a while, maybe 6-8 months, and certainly in depth. So we've gotten to know each other quite well in a short amount of time. But I currently am the commercial sales manager for ServPro Bay County, and for what we call in the ServPro system, we call, the larger franchises call themselves teams per se. You refer to each other as your team and then the last name of your owner. So for Team Carter, I operate our storm operations and sales as of last year in Hurricane Laura. Previous to that, I was the general manager of our Pensacola office for 3 years, which was great, but it was, I consider this a bit of a promotion, a little more excitement on the day-to-day, working directly with the claim, with the customer, and all the stakeholders directly instead of from an upper management perspective.
Tell us a little bit about ServPro exactly. Again, there may be some people who aren't as familiar with you guys as we are. Tell the folks exactly what it is that you guys do.
So at ServPro, we're currently the largest disaster restoration company in North America. We do anything from fire and water cleanup to mold cleanup, repairs, predominantly focused on insurance claims. We also take private work if that's what we're needed. But we specialize in creating an experience for all parties that's fair and equitable to create an end result, whether that be with the insurance carrier, the homeowner, the PA. That's what we hope anyways, is to be a service to all parties in that. And through that is where we find our success in helping people first, and then worrying about letting you guys do the hard part, which is the business side of what we do. We like to take the role of tradesmen and helpers in what we do. And so, people in our business that have that heart will, seem to really succeed. And that's where I think that's been my success in the ServPro, particularly the ServPro franchise system, is I've just stuck with a desire to help people, and it's rewarded me as far as finding other clients to work with to continue to help people. So to me, that's what ServPro is in as a whole. We'll take anything at any time, anywhere, and mainly to help people.
Now, when we'd met earlier, I would say last fall, how long had you been working with ServPro up until that point?
So with ServPro as a whole, I've been there 3.5 years. And previous to that, I was with the DKI franchise in Panama City, Florida, for about 10 years to the month. And then they sold the company, retired to do much more interesting things. And so at that point, the ServPro owner who owned the ServPro Bay County, I'd worked around for a decade, was a good man, really enjoyed him, had a great operation. And so I was still a little shy about moving too far from home. So, we had a great conversation, and, so far it's been a good move. But I spent my previous 10 years with another company, great people, taught me most of what I know, but, they got to that place where they retired and, closed the business. So at that point, I, had to get a job somewhere. So I'd seen that they'd done good work. That was number one for me. I'm born and raised in Panama City and Bay County. So that's important to me. It's a very small town. As you know, there's maybe 80,000 people there. So that was important to me. And so it was an easy choice. Luckily, I've, found a great ServPro to work at.
You're working on some really big jobs in some pretty unusual circumstances following these hurricanes and other catastrophes. There must be a ton of logistical challenges, all the way from the people that you're using to where everybody's going to be housed and everything else. Give us an idea of some of the logistical challenges that you guys face.
Yeah, so that's my favorite part. Sales may be in my title and my main roles and responsibilities, but I also hold another title kind of in our hierarchy or org chart, which is resource coordinator for our storm team, because I love logistics, because it is stressful for the first 3 to 5 days of a storm. When you're fortunate enough to get in there just as the wind is passing or the ice is melting, which is what I love to do. I have a passion for, eating out of a, canned soup for a couple. I don't know why I do these things, but, within the first day or two, I'm fortunate, I let my clients that I know, or, that I have in the area, or that some of my coworkers may have, or anything of that nature. And I let them know I'm here in the area. And then, so we usually get to swinging pretty quick, and that's good. That's also very bad, because anyone who tells you that they're going to have you something in a reasonable time frame is not lying to you. They may be lying to you, but I like to think my vendors aren't. But it's a lot of challenges. So most recently in Winter Storm Uri, it was a pretty broad ice storm, and what a lot of people didn't consider is they shut down the roads from Shreveport all the way to Dallas, and then even still, when they were open for short amounts of time, you're going maybe 10 miles an hour, and then in 10 minutes within that 10 miles an hour, someone has slid driving a Toyota Corolla with very nominal tires that are great for driving the roads of Texas normally, and has created another wreck. So you're stopped again. So that happens. My own guys on a project, I had a museum that really needed some heat and some upper temperature, right? The HVAC was shut down. It was freezing in there. It was not good for some of the artifacts they had. And so I needed a large generator. And so my guys are bringing this generator. And I don't know if you can say this for OSHA purposes. I certainly didn't ask them, but they drove through the night with the generator. And it took from what is from Dallas to Pensacola about 10 hours, even pulling a trailer in normal times. It took 27 hours straight through with no stopping. So add another 17 hours to that. So that's with what I can control. So with subcontract vendors, we needed another generator at another museum, same kind of organization per se. And that was just another crazy ordeal that, took a day and a half to acquire. And you're working with pretty high level people. I work with other account managers at these companies that we do business with. And this particular generator, I laugh now, it was not funny at the time to myself, but he gave the driver of the semi truck my number, but he gave the wrong number. The last digit was a 1 or a 2 instead of a 1. So this guy's trying to call me as he shows up at 2 o'clock in the morning to this museum, and I was going to come down and meet him, and I was waiting, and he calls, no one answers. He calls his boss, no one answers. So he goes to the hotel next door, and everybody's blaming each other, right? Tensions are high. You just want to complete what you promised, right? Because you promise people that you work hard for, that this is going to happen, right? This is what you can expect. Well, that's a small taste of that on maybe a power level, but really what should be the hardest things when you think about your people, not necessarily yourself, but the people you're responsible for, is you bring them in, and we've gone in to a point where, like with Dallas, you would assume that a freeze, there would be food and water readily available, but there wasn't. For the first 3 days I was there was no bathroom to use with running water. There was no rental car or road that I was allowed to drive on to go get my own. And so I was pretty frustrated with myself over that one. But you want to be there. You don't want, the last thing I want is Peter to call me, and I know there's a storm there, so my customer's counting on me, and I'm still in Pensacola or Panama City, drinking iced tea. So it's kind of I guess a badge you're going to wear. It's just a rite of passage that you can't really get around if you want to be good in my position, at least. So that's some logistical things we deal with. I think a lot of people deal with that. And usually by day 5, day 7, once they start getting power on, the community starts serving each other. By day 5, you've got more food trailers and pop-up tents, and just amazing. Which is probably one of my favorite parts of Storm, is by then, FEMA's great, all these things, all these things have their place to an extent, but there is no better force to help each other than their own people, your own neighbors, the people that it's just, it's better, bless the Red Cross, but their food is all what they can afford, right? So it's maybe not better, much better than eating nothing, but I just have so many stories that I can't even remember of hurricanes in the first week or two where people are hungry, and they're hungry because I'm hungry and I should have brought my own food, and I'm still eating out of this bag from this street side vendor, that's from a church or somewhere, and of course keep in mind I'm subjecting myself to this, but at this point in my career I've seen this a lot of times, where it's somebody driving a brand new Platinum F-250 at some whatever reason cannot source food at that moment, and I don't know what that reason would be, and probably self-induced as well, but the story is all the same. Then for that moment is a catastrophe for that person, and so that it is for everyone, and you get to a point where you quit complaining, you're like it makes things a little smaller for you.
Yeah, I agree with that. I remember Hurricane Michael, and I think I came in at least 5 days after, and it was amazing still to not have cell service or barely any cell service and no power in certain segments of Panama City. I mean, were you living there at that time when the storm came in? I mean, what did you go through at that time?
So with Hurricane Michael, I almost for a little while I felt guilty. I just moved to Pensacola to take over the Pensacola location just a few months before, and I had a weird feeling. My body has a weird thing where when I get extremely stressed, if there's nothing I can do at the moment, I like to take a nap, and it has worked for me. It's I'm not upset about it. I consider it my superpower. And so when that thing cranked up, I turned my phone on silent. I knew what was coming, and it was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I took a nap. I didn't mean to go for like 7 hours, but nonetheless, I woke up to what was not a lot of reporting, and so we looked, me and our construction manager at the time, who was also from Panama City, great guy. We loaded up a pickup truck, our heavy duty pickup truck with some chainsaws, a few days worth of clothes, and for whatever reason we didn't know what we were going into other than what was on the news. My brain was kind of like, all right, don't think too much into it because I can't get a hold of my grandmother, my grandfather, or anybody else who can. So they live in a very, they lost everything, they completely destroyed the house around them, to rubble. And it's a single wide trailer, same one that I grew up in, and so my brain kind of just put that out. But as we journeyed in and it's dark, you get closer, and I'm thinking, okay, this isn't that bad, right? I'm wondering when am I going to see the damage? Now I'm getting onto Highway 20, and I'm even closer, right? And then I'm like, okay, well, I've seen hurricanes many times. I should be seeing some residual damage, right? And then all of a sudden it was, just every tree laid over, every tree snapped right in half. And it's, I'm running nothing but timber on the road at the time. And then at that point long story short, this is somewhere around 2 a.m., 3 a.m. 4 hours later, we went another 4 miles to where we were in the city. Both of us needed to see a couple family members, particularly elderly. And it was what it was. And I'll never forget my grandmother. As we got down to her street on Transmitter there, which was a pretty bad hit area, and it's a lot of older trailer parks and homes there, and mechanic shops, things like that. They were standing on the street corner, not far from their house, and she had no shirt on, just a bra and her shorts. And my grandfather, no shirt, just shorts on. And I'll never forget this. And they're good people, but she said, where is FEMA? That's her first words to me. She's in shock, right? She rode this hurricane out, ripped the roof off, the top of her, and peed all over herself. All these things, all the things you can imagine for a couple of 80-year-old people. So she said that, and I just said, hey, I can't get into that with you right now, but since you're alive, I know you'll be fine. I've got to go, get to business here, because it was bad enough that at that point there's nothing. Picking up some debris, grabbing some artwork out of the house. It was too much. Every little thing on the property was completely thrashed, cars, everything. So, they were good to go, and it was, so we took off, and it just blew. It was the most mind-blowing thing I've ever seen in my entire life, you think that about certain hurricanes, everybody relates it to what's relative to them. So if you're in Hurricane Laura or Hurricane Florence, you live there, it could quite possibly be the worst thing you've ever seen in your life, right? And but as someone who has seen what I think is a fair amount of evidence, it was just the darndest thing I'd ever seen by far. So but from there, that was you put your head down and you go to work, right? And you just run off pure adrenaline, for a week. And then after a week, people, that's when, in my opinion, people start to, like, when you're still no power grid, you still have, the government's not brought anything in, even the Red Cross is having a really hard time getting down the street, which is usually by day 7, roads are pretty clear. I mean, to an extent, you can get plenty of things around the town, but at that point, the National Guard starts coming in. They're bringing in DEA, whatever agencies are available to have some people come in and hang out. We had a job where, when you, and I try to say this with like grace, but when the best thing one of the other things I enjoy about my job is a lot of times we work with labor forces, temporary labor, places where you feel like, in my opinion, you see really what is going on with America, where people are at. And a lot of times, I say that to say, a lot of times the government facilities are in areas that are more impacted by people who aren't able to readily take care of themselves. And of course, insurance isn't coming anytime soon, right? I mean, that's the last thing that's, it's just not going to happen. So we had, this large government facility in this hurricane, the main one in the town, and they encamped every excess piece of the parking lot as a distribution facility. And this is where the governor would come and do his talks, or a congressman, or whatever, what have you. They facilitated all these tents and crazy things, very unnecessary things when you're trying to operate a project with early voting happening at the same time. But it nonetheless, I spent more of my days unloading food bags and helping people get wash their clothes out of tractor trailer washing machines and things like that. And by day 7, if you have a steady job and you have family nearby, you're probably not utilizing these things. You're not. You may be, but you're probably not by the first or end of the first 10 days, the second week. Something's happening for you. You know what I mean? Somebody's caught a break, and then now you're good on their break, and then now your break happens, and everybody starts to help each other. But it was the craziest thing. People were hungry much longer than they should have been, right? And it's not it was emotional then. It was a blur at the time, so I didn't really feel it, but it's where I'm from, and a lot of these people, it was the craziest thing. Every 100 people that come through, there's somebody that you went to school with, and you're like, holy cow, 14 days in, as poor as my family was growing up, they still have nowhere to wash their clothes. So that's where your insurance is supposed to come in, right? Additional living expenses and whatever these things are, but it still hasn't, right? It's just the craziest thing. So that storm for me was absolutely life-changing, and because of the way it forced you to serve the people there without any selfish actions, because I mean, my goodness, I didn't want to charge the people, no matter how big the entity was or how rich they seemed to be. You're like, oh, just you don't, but you want to just give it to them. It's crazy. It just, I feel like that springboarded the rest of my success in my career, because of the people I met and the emotional experience that, you all go through when it's like so bad, everybody felt it, so it's just, that storm, I almost hate that I'm from there, because people think that you attach to it that way. But I think other people who go into storms can see it from that perspective and say, no, you can, it can get that bad, for some people. It can be that bad versus one storm versus the other. So anyway, I went on about that. That's a deep one for me. That was, I didn't go home for, 6 months. My house was 2 hours down 98 in Gulf Breeze. And I didn't return home for not a minute for 6 months. I just could not. If a friend called me and said, hey, tomorrow night, can you be here at 10 p.m., or 6 p.m., I'd say, no, I can be there at 11 p.m. I was going to go home for 1 minute, but I'll be there. I'll take a look at it for you. So that was a wild ride, man. And I still, I think I still just recovered from the burnout of that ride.
Well, between the logistical issues and the kind of the on-the-job hardships and the devastation and the destruction, you're probably not drawing a lot of people into this industry, right? Tell us a little bit about what makes it all worthwhile then.
So that the worthwhile part is the successes. Just to tee off of Hurricane Michael, we put together, I ended up with 5 projects within the first day of Hurricane Michael. All of them, at that moment, a little more than I could handle all at one time. But the best part was 3 out of those 5 were reopened in 14 days from the hurricane. By the time as they were turning the power back on to their street, we're full service contractors, so we do repairs as well. And we do have a list. So there is some organization to our mayhem. We have pre-elected clients that when something like that does happen, no matter if we have an opportunity much larger, we're going to take care of, who we did sign to promise to take care of. So with that being said, we try to do that turnkey, considering certain arrangements. But we were able to get a dialysis center back open. There's 2 that are my favorite. And this is for me, if the money, whatever you can produce for yourself monetarily is not enough in this business, this next story, this ordeal should be. So a dialysis center, as everybody knows, pretty serious setup. It's kidney failure and all kinds of things centered around that. And it's not normally something a lot of patients can stop doing. There's a lot of medical things you can do in a parking lot or this or that, or wait a little while or whatnot, but dialysis is really not one you can stop. And this is really the smallest of my 5 projects. And my mother was currently had just passed away before this from dialysis, and or on dialysis, not from dialysis. But so I took this project. Obviously I had skin in the game, and there was like 70 something patients that were at high risk of not receiving dialysis, really soon, like really, really soon. And, 180 clients total or something, but 70 needed it, immediately. Had to be sterile facility. This could not be at their own home kind of thing, unless it was signed off on. So the bureaucracy, I don't understand, right? These things that protect these people, all types of red tape to go through. So, so we do this, we take on this job, and the guy who owns the center, he's not a doctor, but he owns this building. He says to me, if I give you this project, you understand that you have 10 days or 2 things happen. People have to make a decision, try to get out of here and not come back until it is open. Or, I innately have some clients who wait it out, and that could be deadly for them. And I said, oh no, I completely understand. And I did understand. I said, but I need 2 things. I need you to trust me, and I need you to get out of my way. That's it. You just have to get off this property and never come back. If you want this done in 10 days, show up on day 10 and I'll hand it back to you. And we did, for 10 days, we put more resources into that than you could ever imagine for a 7,000 square foot facility. When everyone we work with, homes are smashed. That was another weird thing about the hurricane, is everyone's homes are smashed. But when we finished that, I went back to get the final certificate, maybe 6-7 days later. Let's call it a week later, and it was the only normal place I had been in 10 days. So the property was cleaned, right? We scraped the concrete, all the debris was removed. In that 10 days, they had replanted some flowers, right? They on their end, they had done a good job of getting, like, we don't do that, we'll do the flowers, but we didn't do it here. And so, but I like looked around as I waited for them to like get me in and give me a badge, and I didn't cry, but I thought to myself, man, like, for 2 seconds, I forgot where I was for the first time in 10 days, because you're just surrounded. You wake up to sirens, you go to sleep to sirens. And for that gave me a buzz that I haven't turned off, so the good side of this is that, and it's not for everybody, but for me, I have chased every opportunity I've had since then. And it certainly isn't all for the money. I can assure you that, because we are tradesmen at the end of the day. We build things, we clean things, and we move furniture. So that's the extent of our deal. But yeah, so that's exciting for me. That may not be everybody's gig, and I think if it was, everybody would do it. But that is an addictive rush, and I think others would find that too if this was a business they wanted to get into.
Yeah, definitely agree. And you kind of said it, that it's not for everybody. Why do you think it's for you?
Well, so the easy things would be that I don't have children. I have flexibility that most don't have, and this isn't a business where you can say, if you tell someone no and there is some travel involved, or it's the middle of the night, at that point, whether they like you or not, or you play softball together or not, they'll never call you again to help them when they have a problem. So I think for me, I've been available. I haven't felt some of the crunches that some of my coworkers over the years have felt with kids or a spouse or being a single parent, kids in graduation, all the things that, get hard, and they always come summertime, it's always beginning of schools and hurricane season, and end of schools at the beginning of hurricane season as well. So that has given me some freedoms to chase some things that I don't think a lot of people get the opportunity because of that availability. So that foremost, I do recognize that gives me I wouldn't be the only person in my particular position. It's a common theme, married and, no kids, or married and kids, but, there's a lot of divorcees in our side of the fence. I think people lose sight of what's important. So, but for me, I work with a great owner that he does like to push me, but he also, if I was to say I'm tired, which, fortunately I haven't been, we would well, it's not I'm not the guy with boots on the ground, with the shovels and things. So I couldn't even, if I was tired, I wouldn't say it, because they would, as soon as we got off this video, they'd see it and they kill me for complaining. So, but for me, that's been why I fell in love with it. I did this work. College was not for me. I did a semester. I did terribly in the subjects that mattered, and then I aced the ones that no one cares about. And so my friend, we were at a football game, and my best friend said to the girl I was dating at the time, we're hiring, and she said, "Oh, he needs a job. He just quit school." And he said, "Oh, come down Monday, right? Come down Monday." And I said, "Oh, I have no, DKI, disaster cleanup. What is this, right? What are we cleaning up ships in the ocean? What are we doing here? What kind of cool stuff is this?" And they handed me a vacuum and said, "I want you to vacuum this wall cavity out and pretend there's something there, because there's mold spore, right? And you can't see it at this point. The demos happened, and this guy Jim, his name's Jim, and I love this guy to death. He's one of my favorite people of all time. But this is many years ago. I do it. I try to do it. I wasn't raised to clean or things like this. And so we leave at 11 o'clock. We get in his van, and he's eating a sandwich. We've made a sandwich every single day. Remind me of my grandfather. And we drive back to the office, and he pulls up and he says, "We're done here." And I'm 20 years old, hadn't turned 21 yet. And he goes, "We're done. I'm done with you. This isn't for you. You're fired." And I said, "Oh man, wow." I don't know. I don't know what he saw, what it's like to look back at me. So he probably did think he was done with me, right? Well, I got home that night, and that did not sit well with me. I did not like that. I refused to have to tell the girl I was dating that just happened to me. So this is the only way I can fix it. I got to go back tomorrow. I got to try to go back. Keep in mind, I'm making $7 an hour at the time, right? I showed up in a tie, right? I came with a tie, my own pen, and they gave me $7 an hour because I brought my own pen. This is why they hired me. So that's what gets you $7 an hour at the time. So I come back the next day. We're sitting at a table, and it was very awkward. And George, the boss at the time, says to me, "What are you doing here? Jim let you go." And I said, "Yeah, I'm not really good with that, man. I'm not a loser like that. We're gonna have to try this again." And I must have been fired 10 times in the next 6 months because I sucked at cleaning and moving things. I got electrocuted, broke something, wouldn't hear my phone ring. Anything I could do at that age, and with a good attitude, it would happen. I had names like Bull in a China Shop, Sparky, all these things. Any name you could, anything you could have for somebody that doesn't know what they're doing was for me. But I kept at it. It gave me purpose, and I felt like it was a good place to like get your karma out, helping people, scrubbing toilets for $7 an hour so that they could have their home back as fast as possible. That's what I thought at the time, and I didn't like it. I hated it. And then I did my first fire as a helper for a guy who I went to school with, who is the best guy I'd ever met. Who I thought, and he worked 3 jobs, and their house was pure trash because it's all they could afford. And this fire, it has still to this day never happened to better people. And that's what set me on fire for this industry. Was I got to see the end result. This couple with their multiple kids working many jobs, the best teachers, right? The best people you could ever meet. Till this day, I'm sure the house still is amazing, and it had never happened for him that way. It never happened for him. And so that was it. And here I am. So long story short, from a small house to change, someone's life that actually deserved it, to, a little bit bigger scale where, we do this where I can help, get people back open and serving more people at one time.
Well, Colby, thanks again for stopping by and sharing your story. It's been great hearing ones that I've heard before. And then, of course, there was definitely some new ones I had not heard. But again, thank you so much for being a part of this. We're glad to have you here. Would you like to let any of our guests know how to get a hold of you or how to get a hold of your ServPro franchise?
Yeah, absolutely. And likewise, I appreciate you guys having me on. But if there's anything I can do to assist anybody who's watching this with their with their property damage needs, for a contractor that specializes in that, you can reach me on my cell phone at 850-818-1461, or check us out on our Facebook page at ServPro of Bay County, Florida.
Great. Thanks, Colby. Oh, Peter, that wraps it up for episode 1 of Property Pros. You can find us anywhere you catch your favorite podcast, and we'll see you next time on Property Pros. Thanks.